Menaka Gandhi has, of course, taken the lead on that issue. But what is the reality? I'm joined by Dr. Mahesh Rangarajan. He is Professor of Environment Studies and History at Ashoka University and also was chair of the Elephant Task Force. Appreciate your joining us, Dr. Rangarajan. First of all, as an environment historian, what do you make of the attempt to politicize and even communalize the horrific killing of an elephant in Kerala?
At one level, it shows that the political leadership is aware that people cutting across faiths and political allegiances attach enormous importance to an animal like the elephant. There is a deep sense of anguish at the suffering this animal has undergone. But one hopes it will also be a time to affirm that the Project Elephant, which was launched in 1992, almost 30 years ago, has been supported by different central governments of different parties and by different state governments. It's a project which has widespread support because this is an animal which is important to all of us. So one should hope that that unifying symbol will work.
But, let's look at this specific instance, Dr. Rangarajan. In Kerala, it has been a usual practice, many say. The farmers have been doing this for years to save their crops. This is not the first such instance of, dare I say, a man-animal conflict. Do we need to look at this at one level also from a farmer's perspective? Or do you believe that these kind of explosives being used fundamentally raise very critical questions about the manner in which animals are treated?
I completely agree. When Dr. Salim Ali, the very great Indian ornithologist, met Prime Minister Morarji Desai, Prime Minister Desai said that, Dr. Ali, we do want to save the animals, but we have to look at the leopard or tiger from the viewpoint of the person whose goat or cattle are killed, or from the viewpoint of the person who has to protect crops from the deer. And as you know, Mr. Desai had been a person in the administration. He had been in Thane district. He was quite aware of these forest issues. So there has to be better crop protection. There has to be better protection, which is not killing the animal, but preventing it from coming in. And there has to be systems of crop insurance. Elephant Task Force is just one case, but you need different solutions in different places with one principle. Both the animal, in this case the elephant, in other the wild boar, and the cultivator are both victims. They are victims because our larger society, which needs the cultivator, but equally prizes these animals. These are very, very important to us. We need to have a better system of protection. And protection of livelihood and protection of the habitat and wildlife have to go together. It's difficult, but it is definitely doable. And India is one of the few countries which has the scientific capability, the developmental capability, the administration, including very progressive elements in forest department, who can definitely show the world a better way. But this should be a wake-up call, not just a time for grief, which is understandable.
But the manner in which the villagers used explosives to kill animals, they originally claimed that it was meant for wild boars who feed on their crops. How do you, in a way, eliminate this man-animal conflict on the ground? How do you save the elephant in this instance?
I think we have to realize that India is a country which has almost 28,000 elephants. There are more elephants in India than any country in Asia, and they have survived also because people have learned to coexist with them. But they're not easy animals to live with, and the people also at times turn to very extreme measures. And in this case, there's been a very inhuman, very brutal killing, not just of an elephant, but as it turns out, of a pregnant elephant who would in normal course of time have given birth to a calf. And she did not harm anyone directly. But the conflict is intense, Rajdeep. Over 100 elephants are killed every year in India illegally. And over 55, 60 are killed by people protecting crops. In turn, elephants kill over 600 humans. Now, the elephants are not predators. They are not killing humans in order to eat them. In fact, they would want to avoid people. But the conflict occurs often in the crop fields or on roads or in human inhabited spaces. And however large our elephant reserves, we have the largest elephant reserves in Asia with the maximum elephants. Number of state governments have done a lot to protect them over the last many years. But the fact is a very large part of the range of elephants is outside protected areas. And that is where the conflicts are intense. So no, it is not an acceptable practice if someone uses explosives, if someone uses these devices. But there are, according to our calculations, and they're 10 years old, I think the numbers would be larger now, 500,000 people in India who sustain crop damage due to elephants. So the elephants are victims of people who are trying to defend their livelihood. The people also are victims. Both need protection, and there has to be a red line. A human being killed by an elephant is not acceptable, and certainly an elephant being killed in this brutal way is equally unacceptable, and it's not a mark of a civilized society, and certainly is contrary to the larger tradition of cohabitation, or if you like, coexistence.
You know, Dr. Rangarajan, you say this is not an isolated instance. Over 100 elephants are illegally killed every year. To that extent, has Project Elephant, the Elephant Task Force recommendation, not been successful given the nature of the killings that continue in this man-elephant conflict?
The Elephant Task Force, like any task force, made a set of recommendations. And one of the major recommendations was to declare the elephant the national heritage animal. Because the elephant is very important in cultures, languages, histories across the length and breadth of India. It's one of the few large animals which has been seen by most children. And most children, whatever language they speak or religion they profess, will be able to draw an elephant. It's an animal which has a very special place. The task force's recommendations have to be carried out by the federal government and state governments. Many of them have been carried out. But I'm sure everyone will agree much more needs to be done. And the large challenge is making the places where elephants and people share spaces safe for both. It has to be both. We need the elephants. We also need the people. And this is a very tragic incident, but I just want to highlight the enormous loss of habitat which has happened because of linear projects, which are cutting off old elephant movement routes. They're very large ones. They're coming up in many parts of India, including the Western Ghats. And we need to look both at the individual animal, very important, but also at the populations and the habitats, and keeping the habitats intact for movement beyond the protected areas.
So let me ask you, therefore, in conclusion, is there an element of hypocrisy when we see this moral outrage? Yes, terrible instance that's taken place in Kolkata. The government says it will order a probe, but it is the same government that allows the elephant corridors of this country to be used for mining, that allows private contractors in a way to leave elephants. We've got reports to starve during the lockdown, those who are, of course, in captivity. So really, do we love the elephant or not?
Yes, I won't say hypocrisy. Let me put it this way. The death of an elephant in public in India is a very important matter of mourning for many people. It's extraordinary that elephants which are killed, let us say, by the trains, villagers and cultivators and communities come together. They raise money to conduct last rites. It's not treated as just another animal. That's something I think we should appreciate very deeply about our cultures. But the larger conflict is easier to miss. These corridors and these movement routes have been identified. The elephant is an extraordinary animal. There's been work by the Wildlife Institute of India, the leading institution, the various state forest departments, the Wildlife Trust of India, the World, WWF, and they've identified them. So this is known. It's not rocket science. There are 80 corridors in India which are known, and all we have to do is in those corridors not to have major built construction so that the elephants can move. And along with this is the fact that many of our highways and roads are built on old elephant paths. So the next time you see a photo, elephant comes onto road blocking traffic, it's not the elephant which has come on the road. The traffic has been built on an elephant path because these are very sagacious beasts. They have worked out the best way to move on a hill where the contour will support their enormous weight. So definitely there needs to be equal attention to the habitat and the protection. I also want to highlight the 40-odd elephants which are killed by poachers are killed for ivory. And southern India, these states, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, West Bengal, Karnataka, have the largest number of elephants on earth. There are many populations where there are hardly any tuskers. The ratio of male to female is 1 to 100. So there are elephants being knocked off for their tusks, that's one part. And then there are these habitats which are getting fragmented. So it's a very major challenge, and those habitats are important for us. They're important for water security, for floral diversity, and humans can continue to live there. But these linear structures, particularly the roads, the bridges, the trains, they really need to be aligned extremely carefully.
Just a final question, which I asked you about elephants in captivity. You know, also elephants in temples. We have a report which says more than 1,000 elephants in the lockdown months are dying of starvation. We keep saying elephants are our heritage, you know, it's deeply embedded into our culture, but do we really take enough care of our elephants, Dr. Rangarajan?
Yes, I think the captive elephants is a distinctly different issue. There are around 3,500 in India. It's the largest captive elephant population in the earth. Almost all have been captured from the wild. Next time you see an elephant, it is unlikely it has been bred in captivity. And the best captive breeding programs are by forest departments. The elephants are, by the way, better looked after. And there is definitely a lot of scope to improve and upgrade the quality of care of elephants in captivity. There's phenomenal work in the last 50 years on elephants, and you're amazed to see that they are capable of grief. There's scientific work on how they need to touch each other. They mourn the dead. And many of the captive elephants are not being able to access water regularly, not just to drink. They need to immerse themselves in water once a day. Their diets are perhaps not the best. They need better veterinary care. And there is no doubt that the captive elephant welfare can be of a far higher grade. There are a lot of very conscientious owners and elephant caregivers, but there is huge room for improvement there. And yes, this should be a wake-up call, both with the wild elephant population and with the captive elephants.
Mahesh Rangarajan, for giving us a sense of the challenges that go beyond just the outrage of this one incident that is tragic as it is in Kerala. Thank you very much. Don't play politics with our tuskers. Instead, treat it genuinely as a heritage animal.
Hello everyone, this is Rahul Kamal here. Hope you enjoyed this video. For the latest news and analysis, like and subscribe the India Today YouTube channel, and don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated.